In the book of Acts, which two disciples were perceived by the Jewish religious leaders to be uneducated common men? The story behind this question takes place just after a man who had been lame for over 40 years is healed by two of the disciples. The religious leaders are seemingly perplexed. They can't deny the miracle that has happened. After all, the man, who they have more than likely seen immobile in the past, is now standing there right in front of them. At the same point in time, here are two men of no high regard, no formal religious training, that have performed a miracle quite possibly greater than anything these high-ranking leaders have ever been a part of. And not only that, they speak with so much boldness and confidence that it's like they actually know what they're talking about. So, they're stuck here trying to figure out how any of this makes any sense. Now, the focus point that resonates the most with me is the perception of these two individuals being uneducated and ordinary men. They didn't have degrees from a religious institute, and they weren't trained theologians. In fact, they were just fishermen who knew their way around the water. I myself do not have a 4-year degree, have never been to a Bible college, and I'm currently unqualified to attend most, if not all, seminaries around the nation. I'm just an ordinary blue-collar worker, of which I'm sure many of you can relate to as well. But here's the thing that made all the difference for these two men. It says, and they recognized that they had been with Jesus. That is what gave them their boldness. That is what gave them their wisdom. And that is what gave them the power to heal this man, Jesus. Now let us make no mistake. We're talking about the same guy who was intimidated by a servant girl enough to deny knowing Christ, that is now speaking to the highest of religious leaders with such boldness and authority. That transformative power only comes from walking with Jesus. What I think this story does so well to demonstrate is that God doesn't care about your qualifications. He cares about your willingness to be used by Him. He's a God who can use ordinary men and women for His extraordinary purposes. He just needs you to show up and say yes. You don't need a platform to make an impact, and you don't need a title to be used by God. You just need a heart willing to be with Jesus. A good place to start: spend time in His Word, talk to Him in prayer, and surround yourself with a community of believers who love Him the same. I pray that this encourages you to recognize that you don't need a degree, a certain position, or a special title to begin sharing God's love and the good news of Jesus Christ. He can use you right now if you're willing. To share with boldness isn't about personality. It's about proximity to Jesus. When you stay close to Him, His courage becomes your courage. His wisdom becomes your words, and His love becomes your lifestyle. Acts chapter 4, verse 13. Now when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, and perceived that they were uneducated common men, they were astonished, and they recognized that they had been with Jesus.